Let's knit the tiny mouse. Hey, it's Denise from loom.com. For a complete list of supplies and more information, visit the website. Alright, let's begin with the drawstring cast on. We're going to be working with 2 strands of worsted weight yarn. I'm going to secure mine with a simple knot to the anchor peg. You can use a slip knot if you're more comfortable with that. And I've placed a stitch marker on peg 1 and 12, and I'm going to be going in this direction. Take the working yarn, put it behind peg 1, and again I'm going to be going to the right. You can go to the left, it's okay. Take the working yarn and you're going to zigzag through every other peg until you get to peg 12, and then you're going to turn around. You're going to wrap and come forward because you've wrapped and turned. We're going to knit flat, and it should look like this. See, it looks like a Z's, like a bunch of Z's. So you zigzag, and now you take that working yarn and you're going to place it loosely over a few of the pegs, and with your hook you're going to knit off every peg that has 2 loops. So in other words, you're knitting every other peg till you get back to the front, and you're going to knit off peg 2. At that point you finished with the cast on because peg 1 only has 1 loop, and now you're ready for row 1. And for row 1 you're going to wrap and turn and then knit 11, and it looks like this. Peg 1 only has 1 loop, so you wrap your yarn to the back, bring it back forward, and you're going to lay it over peg 2 and then half wrap that peg, and with your hook you're going to knit off. Alright, and then you're going to half wrap and knit off and continue. You need to do the 11 remaining pegs, so you're going to keep going until you get to peg 12, and you're using the U-wrap version of the knit stitch. Once you knit off your last peg, which is this one right here, it looks a little funny, just bring it forward and half wrap and knit off. At that point you finished peg 12. You're ready for row 2, and you're just going to knit those 12 pegs. So you started here, you're going to turn around and knit that peg again and keep knitting using that same U-wrap version of the knit stitch until you get to peg 1. So you're done with row 2, and I'm going to go ahead and take the knot off my anchor peg now. You can do it when you're comfortable. And we're ready for row 3, where things change a bit because we're going to add a stitch and then knit the 12. So here at peg 1, you're going to take the working yarn and place it over peg 24 that's right next to it, like this, right? Then you're going to take that working yarn and bring it forward and lay it loosely over peg 1, and you're going to knit off. At that point you now have 13 pegs with stitches. So just continue to knit. You're going to knit your way back to peg 12. At that point you are done with row 3, and we're ready then for row 4. So you're going to do the same thing you did over here. You're going to do it here now. So again on row 4, you're going to add 1 and then knit the 13 stitches. So bring your yarn and lay it over peg 13 and wrap around and lay it over 12 and knit off. Just like you did on row 4, just like you did on row 3 here, you're doing the same thing here, then here, over, and you're going to keep going until all of your pegs have stitches. So just like you did on row 3, and just like you did on row 4, here you're on row 5, and once you knit off peg 24 over here, you are going to add a stitch for row 5 and then knit 14. I hope you can see the pattern that we're doing, right? You're adding a stitch on both sides every time you finish a row. So you're going over there, you're here now, and you're going to now knit more stitches because you have more stitches because you've added more stitches to your pegs. So for rows 6 through 14, you're going to continue to add a stitch and then knit the row completely. And then for row 15, we're going to knit 30. And I know that sounds crazy. You're knitting 24 plus an extra 6. So here we are. And from this peg, we're going to go around the loom to the one next to it. And instead of going back, we're going to come over to that peg and knit these 6 right here. And then from peg 24, you're going to go to peg 1 right here. And then knit around the circle until you're back at peg 24, and then you're done. All right, let's do it. Knit off, don't turn around, come to the next one. You're knitting in the round. For row 16, knit 24 pegs in the round. We're done and we're ready for the cast off. I'm going to be using the gathered method, but the drawstring cast off is actually a better option. Now with the working yarn, you're going to wrap around your loom 1, and I only do a little bit, but it's better if you do 1.5, and I cut. And now with your hook from the top, you're going to scoop up the working yarn and feed it through each loop for the gathered method. If you're doing the drawstring cast off, it'll be a bit different, but for this one, that's what you'll do. Now I prefer a needle, so I cut off the tip of my yarn and I feed the working yarn through my needle, and then I go from the bottom up and I feed the yarn through. This has the same effect. I'm doing the same thing to the working yarn. I'm just using a different tool, and with the needle we go from the bottom up. With the hook you go from the top up. Now I didn't have enough yarn because I only cut 1 and a little bit, so I have to remove half of my loops as I work around my loom so that I can pull on the drawstring, and it'll give me the yarn that I need to finish feeding through the loops. I like to save yarn, that's just me. And then I can take the loops off my pegs and my fabric is free, and now I'm just going to stretch my stitches. This is very important. The pattern is not going to work if you don't stretch your stitches, and now you can start pulling on the drawstrings as well. Okay, and you'll see that it starts to get a little tube like, and here is the back part. The narrow one, of course, is the nose. So keep pulling because you need to close it, and then I cut the tip, I thread my needle again, and I'm going to start to close this opening here by sewing in a circular manner. And you're going to notice that I skipped some of the loops. I'm doing that to kind of close this up as best as I can, because the gathered method of doing the cast off leaves a lot of wrinkle, and it doesn't close very well. So every time I go around, which I'll go around about 2 or 3 times, I skip a few of the loops from that cast off. You can tell that some of the wrinkles go away, not all of it. Once you finish closing up the little opening, then we're ready to sew, and we're just going to take that same needle and yarn and we're going to go from side to side. And if you notice, I'm skipping the edges because I want to sew in a way that the edges fold inside, and so that the bottom of the little toy doesn't look so funky, right? You'll see that the edges are basically curling in as I sew the toy upward. I want to show you some variations on the pattern that I tried before I did this one. Here is a couple of rows, the cast on in a different color, 2 rows, and this little nose I got from leftover from the felt. I sewed it on here and I sewed the eyes on, but this time I'm going to do safety eyes and a safety nose for this little guy. I think it's going to look cuter. So I find my middle from the back and I come forward, and then almost at the very edge in the middle I'm going to put the nose, which is also going to help me make a decision as far as the eyes. And so I get that situated first, and then the eyes, well, after I put the little back part of the safety nose so it doesn't come off. By the way, if it gets too tight, you can modify this, and this happens to me all the time. I put it on way too tight, and then I have to go back and kind of loosen it up a little because the yarn looks crazy. So with the pick, I just loosen it up a bit. See, right there, now it looks better. And then I count about 2 to 3 stitches from the nose on each side, and that's where I'm putting the eyes. You can do this however you see fit, however it looks best for you. Then get your stuffing, because you need to finish that before you close up the little cat. If you're going to use catnip, just fill a gauze first, and then put the gauze full of the catnip into the little mouse. And by the way, it's probably better that you use cotton. Try to make the back part have more, and you just keep stuffing it until the wrinkles are out of the back part, and then look to see if you like the way it looks. If you feel like you have enough polyfill or catnip or whatever you're doing, then you can finish closing up this from the sides. And this yarn, I'm actually, once I finish sewing the bottom, I'm actually going to take it to the back and make it part of the tail. You can use a different color yarn, like sometimes people use pink, but I'm just going to use this. So later on I'm going to cut the extra one and then cut it to the length that I want and put a knot on it. Here, this is the top, which was the cast on. I'm going to thread a needle and close the cast on. Same way I did the back part of the little toy. I'm going to do this front part, same thing, their snout, I don't know what it's called, the nose. I'm going to close it up same way I did. It has loops, so I try to skip a few just to close it up. It's not as drastic as the back part because you did a drawstring and that closes up nicely. So I'm going to do about 2 to 3 rounds in a circle and then bring it inside and cut that excess yarn. In my case, I'm not actually weaving in. What I'm doing is fixing whatever doesn't look as the way I want it to. I'm using this extra string to make it look nice, and then I pull it and I cut, and there you have it. Now to make the ears, I'm going to use this felt craft about 1 inch or a little less than 1 inch. Put a dot here and then go 4 inches because I'm going to do I'm going to show you with 4 parts, but we actually need 6. And they're 1 inch wide. Well, it's actually a 1 inch square that I'm going to then cut into shape. It's just easier to do it this way. And like I said, I'm doing 4 right now, but you actually need 6, which would be 2 for the ears, 2 for the little hind legs, and 2 for the front legs. So in the meantime, we'll do the 4. So I'm going to cut the pieces again into even squares, even though the actual shape is going to be different. And so this just gives you extra in case something goes wrong. You have enough. So here's the little square, and it's almost the same color as my stuff, so you can't really see it. And now I'm going to cut it. I'm going to round off the top, because I'm going to start by doing the ears. And so this is basically all I'm going to do for the ears. And it's going to be probably a little big in the beginning, and then I just start shaping them. I can make them smaller, wider, narrow, whatever. So I pinch the bottom and poof, there you have it, your first ear. Now, you can use a glue gun to put this together, or you can use a needle. And so first I'm going to show you by using a needle. I'm going to sew on the ears, and then I'm going to glue on the little legs. So you first need to have that pinch in place and then figure out where you want the little ears. I put them right by the eyes. They help me decide where to put them. And then, believe it or not, you can move them around after you basically anchor them to the doll. And I'm going to do it like right around here, both of them. So we'll give it a try. If it doesn't look right, you can just take them off and put them back on. So first, I make a knot on my thread. You don't have to do that if it's uncomfortable for you, but I do. And then I'm going to secure this little pinch that I do on the ears to make sure that they stay that way. And now this felt, you only need a very little bit. So if you have some leftover scraps, you can probably make this just from your scraps and you don't have to go buy them. All right, so I'm counting about 3, and then I anchor my first ear. And like I said, if I don't like the way it looks, I just cut more off of the little ear. I can continue to shape as long as I have material. I can keep shaping the little ears. So here's the first side, and I want to make sure that it's on really good, because whether it's a toy for a kid or it's a toy for a cat, you don't want these ears to come off because it's not going to be a good thing. And I make them a little bigger so that it's cuter for a bigger kid, but you have to really think about it for a little one. It's up to you. You know your kids better than I do. Now this is how I put the second one in. So I fed the needle all the way to the other side, and now I sew this second one in. And what I'm going to do now that there's 2 of them is that I will go back and forth, and I kind of messed up here. So let me fix that first, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to feed it from one side to the other a few times. I messed up here. So let me fix that and let me show you what to do next. So I got a new piece of thread because I cut that one, and I put a little knot, and then like I said, I'm gonna go from side to side because sewing the ears this way is more secure, and then I can shape them like I said as I go along. So these, I felt they looked more like bunny ears than little mouse ears, so I rounded them off more and I made them smaller. And then I got my needle back again, and this the sewing on these came out a little sloppier than I would have liked, but once I'm finished, then you could just put it through the side, and like I said, reshape your ears, and you can come up and clean them up a little better later on. But there you have it. They're your ears. And now you're ready to make your little hind legs, and it's best to narrow them down. And then I don't know how many little toes a mouse has. I gave it 5 and then kind of changed my mind later on. You want to take the edge off of them so that they look like little paws. I guess that's what little mouse feet are called. I didn't do my research. I'm so sorry. And again, you want those to be a bit more narrow. So first figure out where you want them and how they look. And then you just keep chopping away. That's why you make it a little bigger, so that you have room to do that. So you have room to adjust the shape of your little hind legs and the front legs as well. You're going to do the same thing. The front ones are usually thinner. And now I'm going to glue them on. I'm going to use the hot glue. So first I situate them where I want to have them, and I'm only going to put the glue on the back. You can glue them completely together, but I kind of wanted them to flap a little on the sides, and so I only put on the back. And then if it's too hot, you can use the pin to put it in place. It's not too hot for me, but I just wanted to show you an option. And the so-called hot glue gun is a low temperature hot glue gun. So it's not going to kill your yarn, and it's not going to kill the felt either. It's just going to allow it to glue to for the felt to glue to the yarn. So just, you can put it on there again as long as it's a low temperature hot glue gun. Right? That's like a little giant, right? But you get what I mean. All right, so put your little legs, and then once you have the hind legs situated and you have them where you want them, then you can go ahead and make the little arms. In the meantime, isn't he super cute? I just love him. So I'm going to put mine right here. You can decide where you're going to put them by pinning them to the little toy before you glue them. And the little hands again are much smaller and a lot more narrow. That's why I leave them for last, because sometimes I'll just use whatever little scrap was left over because they're so little, right? And they're so thin. So any small amount is going to work perfect. And again, just like I did with the legs, I'm going to glue them on. And thinner is just going to be better. And you can kind of cut the tips off on the sides to make them look more like little hands and feet. And that's where I'm going to put mine. So I pin it just like I did the little hind legs. And that allows me to take a look. Is that really where I want them or not? Is that the way I want them? Do I want them more to the back, more to the front? And bam. Your little mouse is complete. All I have to do now is glue my little feet to my mouse, and it's time right after this for a super cool photo shoot, right? Because my little mouse, well, he's done. And you can do yours too in any color you want. Alright guys, hope you like this little project, and you'll give me some update on your project in the comment section. Alright guys, see ya!